Hello everybody. There we go. I was wondering why it's not working. It is working. Mr. Nate, I will recommend you to check your stuff. My chat's not working. Which is very annoying. So we have to read it directly. You know, happy accidents. What is going on? Hello, hello? Okay, that's better. I'll probably have to move. Right. Hello, hello. There we go. That's a lot better. It is better. It's working now. I'm sorry. I've been working these during the night. I was working on other stuff. Hope everyone's having a good time. Thank you so much to Abdinkas for the Stay Hydrated for the 550 joules. And thank you very much to Hold On Nate for the insanely huge $10 super chat that says, let's fucking go. I don't know why my chat, the one that I usually use for this kind of stuff, is not working. Let me see if I can send a message. Yep. Nope. It ain't working. Ain't working, my brother. Brother. This ain't broken, brother. Yeah, let me try to get it again. Brother. Brother. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Chatters? It takes me here. Should be working, but it ain't. It ain't working, man. Yeah, whatever. Live journal is down. So I won't be able to show your chats, at least for the moment. But first off, I want to thank Nate for the insanely huge $10. He is first, and he's not only first, he's also the first super chat. Brother. And thank you, Vic, for being cool. Yeah, thank you, Vic. So, for the people that I've seen here is good to see you, Abe. Good to see you, Cypher. Good to see you, Nate. And good to see you, cool Vic, for being the coolest. The cool. I have to say that I'm gonna start this video in a specific order. Later today is very likely that I'm gonna have my first diss track. It's because again someone goes around, says a bunch of stupid stuff. That's how the bait. He runs like a bitch. So I'm gonna get a little bit of a diss track later on today. I sent it to a couple of people to get, to have an idea what they think about it. But today I'm gonna see Rob Noor versus Destiny. I think Cool Vic already saw this one. The Aspergatronics. Hey, Elder Lion, good to see you, friend.
What you do is
You can't just use my name, you know? It's not you, Lion. You ain't a bitch. It's re-exam, which I think is kind of a bitch. If you're gonna be like, oh, ritual. Give me a second. Water talk shit all the time now. I'm offended. It is what it is. Good to see you, an apologetic preacher. This is Rev, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about these real quick because I think it's funny as fuck. The other day they were talking about abolitionism versus gradualism when it comes to abortion. And he was reviewing Abolitionist Rising, which is one of those little channels from the proto world, by the way. It's a Protestant church. It's based as fuck. That guy's just based as fuck. And I was just saying that he said, and I quote, and this triggered the fuck out of me, that if you say that abortions are child sacrifice, you're taking away from the actual child sacrifices. And I will say that I think every single abortion is a child sacrifice. Full blown child sacrifice. And you do it to the altar of Satan. So, I want that debate. I will be in the affirmative, saying why is it that every single abortion is, in fact, ritualistic? He would be in the negative, but he didn't accept it. So, I created Proto Bro Records with the Z at the end. And we created the diss track dedicated directly to the first of the Proto Bros. Okay? Re-exam. What is a Proto Bro? It's a Protestant debate, bro. I came out with that idea on my own. Yeah. This happened after I realized that they had Truth Cartel. Shit. Decided that maybe they are a little bit of a proto bro if you have a cartel. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and see Destiny versus Rob Nor. I saw these, and one of the things that I find fascinating was how dumb this tiny is and sounds and things when it comes to his bullshit. Okay, because I can tell you this: he ain't caring. He ain't caring about shit. There's like two of us in the debate sphere. Every single one of you, I would call him proto bro. I don't even care if you are or not. It might be. You might be. Proto Boys is better. Proto Bro sounds like they were the prototype. No, Proto Bro is better. Okay? Proto Bro is better because I can use the construct additional pylons meme. That's why. Have fun, some more war, good times. Good times indeed.
Every time you're getting blown the fuck out on the specific facts, you go in this big interruption tirade and you spurk out and you're like, you can't control yourself because you know that you're incapable of winning a debate on even platform. That's why you have your audience right now feeding you shit. That's what.
Oh wait, this is the other. We're talking about the last one. That one was good too. Orlo? is... Yeah, let's go this one.
Right.
Oh, I feel
Construct additional pylons. The mass majority of online apologetics are prots and non-denom evangelicals. Exactly. There will be something on the screen in just a second, okay? Oh, that was not it. There we go.
I feel slighted, Rob. Like he's he's playing favorites. He's only unblocking you. Oh.
What can I say?
Oh.
But the point is, and I'll say this as a precursor as we wait because I don't know if he'll be coming on, right? Like,
Wait, this is when he's gonna come up, and they're talking about the gerrymandering, and we're gonna see some of the dumbest bullshit I have ever seen in my life. Okay, and not from Ryan or Rob. We're talking about this Tiny. He is gonna be retarded. There's like two of us in the debate sphere. You have John Mosman, you have Re-Exam, you have Rev, you have Abe, you have me in a sense, because I'm not part of the church. I'm not an orthobro. I'm a proto-bro. In fact, I decided that I'm gonna become part of the proto-broing. One super chat at a time towards salvation. That's how it goes. My God, my damn birds. Not a great day for the birds.
he's behind. Okay. Well, I'll play this while we wait. Real quick. I promise we'll read the super chats, but real quick.
Nornberg.
What manner of creatures are they then, these bipeds in the prisoner's dock? Is there any punishment commensurable to their crimes? No.
I hadn't seen that before. This is amazing.
No punishment is fit enough for them. The International Military Tribunal,
Fucking
in the
Connor.
name of the freedom-loving nation, is sitting in judgment of the criminal.
This is based as fuck.
The Nuremberg Trust. Maybe we'll get one of them. But while we wait, here's his former co-host, right? Here's what he says. Now, what I love about this the most, I played this on my show last night. Like, people were like, oh, Pisco's now
Wait, this is the most that I can do right now. Is it still low?
finally on the
Yeah, it is low.
train.
Let me just...
It's not just that. It's actually funnier than that. So I'd like to give a shout out to Zero Fucks, who's a fan of both of the show. Oh, never mind. We'll wait. Zero Fucks, thanks for that clip. Here is Destiny, goes by the name Steven here. Destiny, you would like to talk to Ryan or me or both? Just let us know. Either way is fine.
My buddy, it's been so long. We used to hang out.
Yeah, okay. I was watching your...
Okay, yeah. I've yet to see any legitimate protestants in the sphere, save Re-X and myself. You just grab it. Non-denom evangelical Pentecostal Mormon. The Church of England, the Iron Protestant. Why not? I mean, Mormon. I would say Mormon not, but non-denom evangelical, especially non-denom. I would be like, they are specifically very ecumenical. Yeah, they're very ecumenical. They can't believe in the 5 solas. I wouldn't even know. It's less expensive to be a proto-bro, no baptism fees. Exactly. You only have to pay to be part of the church if you want to. They don't have legitimate roots in the Protestant Reformation. So what? Who is gonna tell? Okay, I wanna ask you, who is the authority that will tell them that they have no legitimate roots in the Protestant Reformation so that you can say that they don't belong to the body of Christ? What are they in protest? The Catholic Church. That's why they call Protestants. And I don't mean all of the church, like the Eastern Orthodox. I mean, the idea was that they were protesting the Pope. That's where it comes from. And that domination generally? Yeah, exactly. We don't. Over here, the only denomination that matter, bro, is the super chat, bro. My favorite denomination so far is this one. Oh shit, no. Mauler? The other Mauler. This guy. Oh, look at that. My favorite denomination, brother. Ain't this about bitch? Ain't this about bitch? Pretty cool. Alright. My favorite denom.
Destiny doesn't know anything about the law, legal analysis. It was surprisingly, it was very short of any legal analysis. What was going on there?
Well, you know what, Destiny? It turns out that the law's all vibes, so there just wasn't anything to give analysis to.
That's kind of what I felt like.
I mean, if it's all vibes, like, what are we even here to talk about?
Well, if it's not vibes, then wouldn't the answer to that be to give like legal analysis demonstrating how my opinion is incorrect?
Destiny, your opinion is so transparently incorrect that the entire Supreme Court unanimously voted against you. What is it that you want me to say that wasn't written down in the unanimous court's verdict? And
is this a warpath for you, Emmet? It wasn't a warpath. I just went to a fucking debate. I ain't got the debate. And I ain't got no positions, bro. Ain't got no positions. And since ain't got no positions, except that I can on my own interpret scripture. And it's not even against you. Against this fucker? Yes. Oh, I'm in a warpath against this idiot. And someday someday we'll get to interact. Cause this pissed me off. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and use the idea of the cartel. Bro. Wow, well, it's not even bro because cartel. Hey, ese. Hey, ese. You wanna become part of the cartel, ese? All you have to do is believe in like God, ese. Eh? You see, in the past we used to have like the drugs and the demons, and we just kill everybody that we wanted to. Shit, bro. Yeah. The Church of the Ninjas, as I will call them.
And why do you think it is that, a random legal scholar that you read at some point and your own personal opinions would be given any weight in comparison?
I mean, it's the kind of words you had to say on a previous stream. I'm not sure why this interest in that debate is wrong. No, it's perfectly fine. I'm not gonna force you into having the debate. I still can't call it a bitch move.
Comparison to a unanimous court decision.
So, if that's the argument, why am I here? You can just say 9-0 over and over and over again. But you said that you had a...
True. What can you say 9-0? Over and over and over and over and over again. 9-0.
No idea why you're here. You wanted to be here.
Okay, so
we had a lovely scheduled broadcast. You wanted to
so
pop on.
Is the only point here? Is the only thing you're capable of saying is 9-0 over and over and over again? Is that?
No, Destiny. The point that I would make is that when you have a 9-0 decision, the justices need to come
I've never seen or watched that channel since Mad to Me. Yeah. It's coolio, bro. Where does a constant charges that come from? It's not apostolic. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know where it comes from.
together and find the ground that they are willing.
Yeah, imagine you can debate about diminishing the actual child sacrifice, and you're like, nah.
To vote on that
You're a bitch,
everybody
man.
agrees on. One of the things that happens when that happens, Destiny, is that the court has different judicial philosophies. So they end up on a lot of 9-0 decisions writing somewhat streamlined
Proto
opinions
bro.
because they have to have something that everyone's going to vote on. Just certain justices, like Justice Jackson, love to use legislative history. The originalists won't use it. The liberal justices won't sign on to an originalist opinion. So 9-0s are compromise positions by necessity, but they're also binding and should be transparently, obviously binding because they are 9-0 decisions. It does matter quite a bit, Destiny. So yeah, I do think the burden is on you to articulate a reason other than vibes that the Supreme Court was wrong when it was a unanimous verdict. I mean, if you have an argument for why the Supreme Court was wrong, I'd be delighted to hear you make it. But I can't believe you would think that you actually could carry that burden of proof.
Well, one, I mean, I could just quote the other people that wrote in that decision if I really wanted to. But
Okay. Modern non-denoms got medieval doctrine of sola scriptura and replaced it with sola scriptura. Completely different cognitive, which is what you all mean when you talk about it. What is the difference? Good thing I have my own bunker. Gee. And like 20 different freezers.
I also gave some arguments for why I felt like it was not a
Good to see you, Cat.
good decision, and I didn't hear you contend with any of those.
I don't know why is it so low. I think I saw one that was not as low. Let's try to find the other one. Okay. What in the world? Alright, let's go here.
Here is Destiny, goes by the name Steve.
Destiny doesn't know anything about the law, legal analysis. It was surprisingly, it was very short of any legal analysis. What was going on there?
Well, you know, your opinion vote is all.
Okay, so
we had a lovely scheduled broadcast. You
sure.
wanted to
so
pop on.
is the only point here? Is the only thing you're capable of saying is 9-0 over and over and over again? Is that?
No, Destiny. The point that I would make is that when you have a 9-0 decision, the justices need to come together and find the ground that they are willing to vote on, that everybody agrees on. One of the things that happens when that happens, Destiny, is that the court has different judicial philosophies. So they end up on a lot of 9-0 decisions writing somewhat streamlined opinions because they have to have something that everyone's going to vote on. Just certain justices, like Justice Jackson, love to use legislative history. The originalists won't use it. The liberal justices won't sign on to an originalist opinion. So 9-0s are compromise positions by necessity, but they're also binding and should be transparently, obviously binding because they are 9-0 decisions. It does matter quite a bit, Destiny. So yeah, I do think the burden is on you to articulate a reason other than vibes that the Supreme Court was wrong when it was a unanimous verdict. I mean, if you have an argument for why the Supreme Court was wrong, I'd be delighted to hear you make it. But I can't believe you would think that you actually could carry that burden of proof.
Well, one, I mean, I could just quote the other people that wrote.
So all he's gonna do is just quote the other people who wrote decisions, I guess.
Wrote in that decision if I really wanted to. But I also gave some arguments for why I felt like it was not a good decision, and I didn't hear you contend with any of those.
Okay, so if I recall correctly, you thought it was a bad decision because they took into account the fact that if states could remove the president from the ballot, that there would be mass chaos and that elections would become a joke and it would be a quote unquote patchwork. You think that it was problematic that they used that reason?
Yes, that would be one
Okay,
part.
why is that problematic?
Because that has nothing to do with the original text of the law. It has nothing to do with the original purpose of the law. So why
Yep.
would this be a thing that we would factor in that, oh, this is mighty inconvenient now? My understanding is it's not typically how we read law, that this is if this is inconvenient to enforce, then we're going to go ahead and toss it.
And which
It is really weird that his fucking jaw moves everywhere. It just moves everywhere.
which faction on the court is not originalist?
Ryan, are you going to have any responses to my
No,
argument? Or
I think this is a pretty easy question, Destiny. You know the answer. I can tell you the answer if you don't. Which faction on the court
I'm not
originalist?
interested. I'm asking you, who claimed over and over again to be a lawyer, okay, and I only have my carpet cleaning degree. I'm asking you for what is your rationale.
Okay.
for
I'll
why what I
answer
just said was
I'll
not
answer the
correct.
question because it's very obvious and you don't apparently want to answer it. The left-leaning faction on the court, Destiny, is not originalist. If they wrote an originalist opinion, they wouldn't have gotten the votes of those justices. So they didn't write an originalist opinion because they needed the votes of people who are not originalists and will not sign off on originalist logic. We saw this happen very recently in the tariff case, which you may or may not have read. But on
I don't have bunkers. We don't run bunkers here. Destiny has his pipe cleaning degree. True. Very likely true. Are you gonna work now? No. Damn, I wanna show your okay, whatever. Sola Scriptura means the scripture is the highest and only infallible authority on earth, and all of the authorities, councils are subordinates to it. Sola Scriptura means the scripture is the only authority whatsoever. That's not the position I hold, nor is the historical position of the Protestant reformers. Yeah, but how do you... We're gonna go to interpretation. How do you know that's the correct interpretation? Right? And if that is the case, and Sola Scriptura is the only way to get the final authority, how did the early church deal with the fact that they didn't have the scriptures? And what do you do with the teachings that are not stated directly in the scriptures? So it's complicated.
on the tariff case, you had a confusing split between the justices because the liberal justices would not sign off questions theory. Really? That's what we're doing? This is where Destiny asks a question, gets the
Okay,
answer.
I'm
doesn't
back.
like the
I'm going to
answer,
repeat this again.
and then
I don't know why you're
uses
having
his music degree.
you
Destiny,
filibustering because
you
you're not
should-
confident.
you
You're really
should-
not confident. You should be able to dumpster me on this. I'm asking
It
a
would
very
be it
simple
would be a
question.
lot better for you to
Can't answer
do
it. I'll go
carpet
back.
cleaning.
I'll go back.
Go ahead. Feel free. Go.
Cat is... Again, we're not running bunkers right now. I don't know what to tell you.
Go back.
Can you answer my question?
If
I'm
I
gonna-
may, if
I'm
I
gonna
may
go
try
for
to,
the
You can't answer the question.
1
That's
second.
astounding to me.
if I may, I'll try to steal on both sides. Ryan is saying, Destiny, you may be correct that originalists don't really interpret the Constitution like that in law, so this would be unusual for them to make that claim. Ryan's saying, but the originalists didn't just use originalism, they used a language that would be sufficient for these other justices, particularly the left wings, that went along with that. Destiny's argument on top of that's like, okay, Ryan, but put into your own words, basically as someone who claims to be originalist, why that should be part of the argument that's being made. They
The Byzantium Pope. Jesus.
made this argument that would be against their own originalist intent. Is that fair? That's sort of where we're at?
Yeah. So, Destiny, does that make sense to you that it is not an originalist opinion?
You can speak English and I can speak English. I'm asking a very simple question that we don't need an interpreter for. I'm asking you what is problematic about my assertion that something being difficult to enforce or slightly chaotic is a good reason to get rid of a part of the Constitution. That's a very simple question.
It is a very simple question. The answer that I was giving you had a few parts. I gave you one part. I'm asking if you understood it. Did you understand it?
What did you say that was responsive to my question?
That the reason that they focused on that type of analysis is that it was appealing to the left-leaning justices who would not sign an originalist opinion. That's why the patchwork analysis was highlighted. It's part of the drafting process for a 9-0. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, so then wouldn't you just be agreeing with what I said?
No,
That the
I said
patchwork analysis
there are
doesn't, is that,
multiple.
wait, doesn't that mean that the patchwork analysis then is not an originalist opinion? And I was correct in calling out that that wasn't an originalist?
It is not an originalist opinion, but that's not because the
Cool.
justices
Okay.
were
Well, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
inconsistent or
Well, we agree there.
unoriginalist. It's because they were using the judicial philosophy of the justices that your side likes to appoint because getting a 9-0 was very important.
Gotcha. Okay, so then we agree, right?
So pretty much what they're saying is very simple. They were trying to use the analysis from the other side. So they were giving an argument from the other side, and they were gonna steal man from their side, so they don't have any reason to be removed from that end.
This is kind of vibing, right?
No,
Vibes.
we don't agree that it's vibing.
Let's get
Hold
some
on.
vibes,
Does a 9-0
bro.
decision carry greater weight in law than like a 5-0 decision?
Technically, in many cases, yes, but not
the answer is no.
The only reason why it carries a little bit of weight or more weight is because everybody is in accordance to the interpretation. So it's going to be harder for next judicial systems to say why these justices were wrong.
Not in the way that
No,
you're
the answer
describing.
is no, right? So the question is, why would it need to be 9-0 instead of 5-4?
Because it is an incredibly important decision that shaped the democracy. And one of the things that the court was doing was signaling to the country that this is an area where there is consensus across the justices, and that this isn't an area, because when you get a 5-4, people think they can maybe do something a little bit slightly differently. Maybe they could swing a justice to their side. There's room to maneuver. A 9-0 sends a clear signal that this is absolutely inappropriate.
Well, you're right, Elder. I wasn't going to cover it. But I never ever seen somebody get spanked so hard ever in my life. And I thought it was funny as fuck. Well, watching him getting a spank all the way and back to earth.
And unconstitutional, and we cannot have a country where individual states are declaring that the president's an insurrectionist and taking him off the ballot when the Constitution gave the power to enact legislation in that area to Congress. And also that it just wouldn't make any sense.
It's a vibe.
For
You
the
just gave me a vibe answer.
states.
There's no
It
legal
wouldn't take
reason. There's not a legal
I
reason.
just gave you a bunch of legal reasons.
No, you
You're
didn't.
just
You gave me a
calling them
hold on.
vibes.
Hold on, wait. What part of what you just said like is a part of our legal system, is part of law?
Everything.
How would I understand it? Name one part then. One part of it. If everything was, name one simple part of it. Yes.
Prudential decision making decisions based off of avoiding bad outcomes, is the hallmark of left-leaning legal thought. They needed a 9-0 decision, so they wrote
didn't need a
in
9-0
that
decision.
way. They did need a 9-0 decision, Destiny, because that was really important.
Give me an example.
It was really important.
You're filibustering
that
again
the country understand that this was actually a big deal, and that what Colorado had done was wildly inappropriate and was a threat to our system of government going forward.
I'm just asking because I don't know. In federal statute or constitution, is big deal, is that a phrase that's like a really important part of constitution?
He's literally going with the idea. Fetus? Okay, you have to use fetus. It's like, is that a medical term? Okay, it's a medical term, the fetus. Okay.
Constitutional interpretation or law, or is that a vibe statement?
No, that's me appealing to your autism and carpet cleaning.
So then my question is, from a legal perspective, what difference would it have made if it was a 6-3 or 5-4 opinion versus a 9-0 opinion?
Okay, I will try to explain this again.
Okay.
When there is a close decision, it encourages creative lawyers and creative politicians to do the same thing and structure their actions slightly differently to try to get a different outcome.
Yeah. So what I was saying is there is no argument against this. And they are pretty much stating that to the lower courts, so the lower courts go on and reject it. And if it ever goes to the higher court, it's going to be really hard to argument for it.
But when the justices are united, then it shows that there is a clear.
Oh wait, you need an infallible interpreter to read anything and understand it? No. You can read stuff. And you can understand the stuff you read. But let's say that you and I have different interpretations. Different understandings. Who is correct? Are you gonna tell me that I can't read? And also all of the creeds, all of the patristics, all of the things you're appealing to, you cannot divorce them from the church. They are understood within the idea of the church. Without it, why should we listen to them? I have a brain. I can read. My interpretation is normative because I say so.
No from the Supreme Court that this will not be tolerated, and it ends the issue. A 9-0 ends the issue, and this is an issue that needed to be ended. Another example where something like similar happened was again that did not.
I'm just trying to understand. I don't need.
Yeah, I'm such a meanie. I'm the meaniest guy on the internet. On the internet, okay? By the way, today I will be releasing a diss track. So be ready, cause Proto Bro Productions is gonna be releasing the first of the diss tracks today. Let me go ahead and
tariff case. I'll finish my thought. I'll finish my thought. Then you can talk.
Why?
I don't care if it wastes your time.
Why not just address the exact issue?
The tariff case led almost immediately to President Trump attempting to initiate other tariffs because there was not a single unifying rule about why what he did was a violation of the law. So there's a lot of room in the joints to play with. That's the difference between a 9-0 opinion and an opinion that has multiple pluralities and is split in many different ways. I hope that's helpful.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me, in good faith, interpret, okay, what you're saying. If you were to author a 5-4 opinion as opposed to a 9-0 opinion, then you are signaling to lower courts and the potential plaintiffs in the future that they could try to finagle some way through here, where as long as the language was different or they were applying some different test or standard, that maybe this could be ruled on favorably to them in the future. This is why a 9-0 signal is stronger than a 5-4 signal when you're writing.
Other way around, but yeah. A 9-0 is a stronger signal than a 5-4, but yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Let's say that I took what you just said to be true. Okay. Wouldn't the fact that there were like multiple, I think there might have been 4 concurring opinions written, and all of them took an issue with the exact part of the ruling that I'm stating right now I have an issue with, wouldn't that completely undermine the authority of the 9-0 decision that you're hailing as being so sacrosanct?
I actually don't think you're representing that accurately. I think there were concurrences, but as I recall, what they were objecting to was the language that said that it must be this, that there can be no determination on this issue absent a legislation issued by the by Congress.
That was the part that they agreed on?
No, that's the part that I believe that.
Why, you diss me? I didn't. I did not diss you. I think Rev is pointing out that the fact that the church fathers didn't agree on everything, and the fact means that the church can exist authoritatively absent a formal body. Isn't that the denial of the church?
A lot of the concurrences were pointing out that they had a problem with because they thought it went beyond what was necessary to decide the issue before them.
What would it be important? Because you're talking about the different creeds and the patristics. When the First Council came up, and they are quite literally talking about what it means to be a Christian, And the first thing they say is, well, they pull it up, okay? So, in order to be a Christian, you have to believe in God the Father. You have to believe in one Lord Jesus Christ. You have to believe in the Holy Spirit. And you have to believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Why would it be important if you can have a non-authoritative body to put that in the creed?
Which is whether the state has the power. They all pretty much agreed on. As I recall, the concurrences were criticizing I suppose, the conservative wing for going beyond what was necessary to decide the case. I haven't read it.
Single dono test. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is that these. So I use an app to be able to pull up the different the chats and all that, and I just don't have access to it. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it tells me that I'm offline, but I'm not. I mean, I'd never done this before, so there's probably something going on. Yeah.
What?
But thank you very much to Hold on Nate for the insanely huge $5 super chat. So it sends second dono test.
In a
Wasn't
while,
going
but from
beyond-
recollection.
Not all of the teachings were written in scripture.
Wasn't going beyond it. Wasn't the thing they were pointing out was that section 5 argument was like really.
In fact, there are references to scriptures that have been lost, that we don't know anything about them.
Really bad?
No, Destiny,
No.
you have this back.
Well, we're not assuming. There are references to letters that are not available, that we don't have access to them. We don't know what they say. And they're referenced in the scripture, like they tell you to refer to them.
Backwards. I hate
Okay,
to
hold on.
come
I'm
in.
just sorry. Yeah, I understand. I might have it backwards. I'm sorry. Let me read because Barrett speaks better than I do. I joined parts 1 and 2B of the court's opinion. I agree the states lack the power to enforce Section 3 against presidential candidates. That principle is sufficient to resolve this case, and I would decide no more than that. This suit was brought by Colorado voters under state law and state court. It does not require us to address the complicated question whether federal legislation is the exclusive vehicle through which Section 3 can be enforced. Am I misinterpreting that?
No, but
it's-
that's exactly what I just said.
And also, the thrust of what Ryan's saying here is the originalist or the conservative justices would have agreed without the argument you criticized, which was the patchwork argument. Here is Kagan, the concurrence from.
I just want to say girl power. But this is not Elder's channel. Unfortunately, we are a very, very patriarchy channel. We like the patriarchy. So. But it is what it is. And it ain't what it ain't.
Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. Quote, allowing Colorado to do so, we agree, creates a chaotic state-by-state patchwork at odds with our nation's federalism principles. That is enough to resolve the case. In other words, the left-leaning court justices are the ones that the reason this language was included was to get them on board in the 9-0, and you're saying that's your problem. So even without that patchwork argument, it's still 6 justices to 6-3.
Girls do have rules and pencils and stuff like that. That's right, Kat. Men, guys do too. The ones that study to be architects, they have rules too.
But the patchwork argument is held by the very left-wing justices that you would normally support.
And in the spirit of just being...
The importance that you just gave that they issue a 9-0 ruling so that they are signaling to everybody around the country how steadfast they are in their interpretation is immediately betrayed by the concurring opinion authored by the 3 justices that you yourself just said aren't adhering to the same standards as the 5 other conservatives on the court, because Amy also says that they went too far in deciding that Section 5 would be required to enforce Section 3. This is the same complaint that I had. Is Amy a professional carpet cleaner?
Destiny, the point that I was making, and I think that I think we bottomed this out, so hopefully we're all on the same page, because I said exactly the same thing just now, is that they could have disposed the case on just the question of what Colorado did. There were concurring justices who had to speak with one voice. They could have dissented if they wanted to. They didn't. The reason that they didn't is that it was very important that there be unanimous 9-0 on the core question, which is, could Colorado take Trump off the ballot? And the answer was no. And that's the patchwork
I don't
argument.
disagree with you.
Okay.
But to quote Barrett, the court has settled a politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election. Particularly in this circumstance, writings on the court should turn the national temperature down, not up. For present purposes, our
Up. Cope. I'm not coping. You're coping. I'm not coping. Everybody else is coping.
differences are far less important than our unanimity. That sounds like a vibes argument for a 9-0, not a legal argument. And I think that's
Vibing, Steven. Vibing.
illustrated by the fact that even Amy only joins the
My parent will try to cook frozen hot dogs in my kitchen while the matrix is asleep, so it has its ups and downs. That was very down. That was very down.
holding in parts 1 and 2B, and not the Section 5 argument that you said was so obviously the decider about why this case should have been decided the way that it was. So on that ground, it's a 5-4 decision. Not
the thing you called vibes, Destiny, was the patchwork phrase. That was the thing that you were saying was a vibes-based argument, and that is the thing that all 9 justices agreed on. So yeah, I think it is fair to criticize you for thinking that you, in your wisdom, find something that 9 justices agree on to be vibes-based and erroneous to the point where...
Erroneous. Thank you very much for the votes. I thank you all of you who voted for yes and gave it a like.
It supports your current goal of packing the U.S. Supreme Court full of cronies such that such horrible decisions will never be reached again. Yeah,
but isn't that how we make our decisions? Isn't that how we make our decisions right now? How do we decide to put somebody on the ballot in a state? Does the federal government tell a state who's allowed to go on the ballot? How do they determine if they're 35 years old?
Are you asking
how do they determine if they're a citizen?
You're asking how they determine if they're 35 years old?
How does the state determine this?
I imagine they look at their birth certificate, Destiny.
And the birth certificate records are held by states. So they already do this, right? Is it not that a state could decide that we don't like the birth certificates issued from this state, we don't agree with them? Could they not do that?
And what do you think would happen if they did that, Destiny?
That it would be challenged.
There would be another 9-0 Supreme Court decision saying that you, the state, cannot, in your wisdom, decide that a 36-year-old man is 33 and therefore can't run for president. Like, obviously, that's what would happen. Like, it can't be the case that a state gets to have an arbitrary standard for what 35 years old is and therefore gets to decide who gets to be on the presidential ballot. And if you think that the Supreme Court would have a hard time deciding that one, you've lost your mind.
Yeah. They don't have to. That's the point of it. I agree with Ryan in this case.
I think it's arbitrary. What if states would have taken more seriously the argument that Obama wasn't a citizen of the United States and wasn't born here? And a state decided to leave him off the ballot for that.
I suspect they would have lost 9-0 on that. I suspect they would have lost 9-0 on that. It would have been an easy laughter of a case. It would have been like when the people who were challenging the Virginia Supreme Court, they filed a petition to see if the Supreme Court would overturn the Virginia Supreme Court. They got laughed out of court because it's a frivolous petition. It's an obvious answer and everybody knows how it's going to turn out. I don't think that would be a difficult challenge at all, Destiny.
So where in the Constitution or where in...
The most brutal part of the whole thing with Voltaire was that it was impossible to understand him at all whatsoever. Just impossible. I want the terrible. Good to see you, friend. We're just listening to to Steven getting absolutely schooled by Ryan and Rob.
Federal statute, does it say that the federal government is allowed to dictate to a state how they determine a person's age?
I imagine, Destiny, that they would simply look at the Constitution and they would issue a very similar decision. In fact, I bet they would cite to this opinion, they would cite the we can't have a patchwork rule, and then they would say we can't have a patchwork. You guys can't do this. 9-0. But of course,
That's fine.
that would be a problem if the
fine,
patchwork thing was just 5s, though.
That's fine. That's fine. But we're so far away from any original reading of the Constitution. Nobody has understood it to mean these things. The Congress hasn't. The Supreme Court hasn't. This is a new interpretation. In the past, Congress has voted to cure the injury of Section 3 for people that wanted to take office again in the South. They didn't need the Congress to say first these guys were insurrectionists, right? So why do they feel the need to issue a remedy for it as per Section 3, even if it wasn't enforced already as per Section 5?
Destiny, a few things that I think, just to clarify, because there's some misapprehensions there. Again, going back, this decision was not an originalist decision. It was not an originalist decision to get the liberal justices on board. It's obviously like, because you keep complaining that it's not an originalist decision when it's transparently not an originalist decision for the reasons that I've described. I don't know why you keep saying this. The second point, Destiny,
go ahead.
Once you have a decision on the books, then people can cite to that decision without having to redo the constitutional analysis from scratch. It's a lovely tune, by the way.
Okay.
Is this?
Can you answer a question? You're very
Destiny. Some answers.
It's very annoying when somebody does that. You're like trying to have a conversation with them and they just like move on and start doing crazy bullshit with the piano. I will start doing that. Just piss people off. It's not because it's not because it's a good thing to do. It's just because at this point, what I have realized is that people will take my words in the worst possible way anyway. Will not understand what I'm saying and then pretend that I'm just being mean. So I'm gonna skip those. It's gonna be mean. Yeah, meanie, Emmett.
The questions take more than one word.
What was my question? What was my question? What was my question? What was my question that you just answered? What was it?
You were saying, why is it the case that if the Supreme Court said that you can't monkey around states with the 35 years old rule, that would be some kind of original meaning of the Constitution?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was in the past. What I said was in the past, the Congress had enacted amnesty legislation to allow prior oath breakers and insurrectionists to hold office again. They didn't need Congress to first pass a law enforcing Section 3 of the 14th.
Is that an argument that anything that agrees with the left is bias-based? No. Destiny is just saying that he has other interpretation of the law, and even though it's a 9-0, he goes against the other interpretation of what was given before when it comes to Section 3 of the Civil Rights Act. But his interpretation is dumb. Which, by the way, it really matches the other conversation we were talking about. So this is even better. This is gonna be great. Nate, check your Discord real quick if you can.
So why would they pass the amnesty if Congress hadn't enforced Section 3 with a Section 5 law?
How did the people become oath breakers, Destiny?
By, I guess, the states had determined that they had engaged in insurrection.
After the Civil War?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Those were largely federal prosecutions, as I recall, and there were very few of them. It was mostly pardons.
There were mass. Correct. Yeah, there were not. Yeah. But most of these.
Yeah. So I'm asking who is this person that you're describing?
Most of these people were not adjudicated in any court to have been insurrectionists. The states had made those determinations.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm delighted to take your word for it, but I do not know what you are talking about.
Sure. A man named John Smith wanted to run as a state representative in Texas, and they said no. Do you really want an example?
Oh shit. John Smith? I'm not gonna say that sounds made up, but that sounds fucking made up.
Well, you're making a historical claim with which I am unfamiliar. I don't know that you're right. It's possible you're right, but if you have a historical example, I'd love to have one. Now, Destiny, I assume John Smith is not the guy.
No, I just made that name up. But here, just a question. Just a question.
Oh, there you go. Oh, there you go. John Smith. I knew it. I knew it was fucking made up.
And you're looking it up because you're not sure about this?
Correct. I do not remember the name of every single person that tried to run for. That's not the particular thing. Because, and here's a question. So if I can find an example of a person who was running for office and was blocked without it having been adjudicated in any sort of criminal court, then you would agree then that it seems like they understood that to be self-executing and in effect without
that would be a useful piece of historic evidence. I think it's interesting you brought it up without having one. I almost hope you can find one because I think that would be interesting for us to talk about. I think it's telling though that you made the claim without actually having the example.
Well, because I don't remember the exact. Hold on, I just want to be clear so that I understand it. You're saying that my argument here that
he just wants to be clear, okay? Wait, look at that hand, okay? Now there's a lot of women and men, but mostly women. I'm gonna have to go there, Kat. I'm sorry, but there's a lot to do with the woman. They use the bird hand, you know? Bird hand. Now, Destiny, he ain't doing the bird hand. He's doing the dog hand, okay? He knows his dog hand.
the Congress passed legislation to remedy a Section 3 injury in the past without first having required the federal government to pass a law enforcing Section 3, then my argument there is invalid if I can't remember the specific name of a person from the Confederacy who tried to hold an office in the Reconstruction era of the United States government who was forbade by Section 3 but not adjudicated in any criminal court first.
No,
that's the threshold of evidence that I need to meet to satisfy that argument?
No, Destiny. What I'm saying is if I had done the opposite, if I had said there was no case in the history of America of a state ever doing this sort of thing, and then you said, Ryan, that's a bold historic claim. Do you have some source for that claim? Do you have some kind of historic record, some article that backs that claim up? And then I said, a guy named John Smith told me. And then I was like, John Smith, I don't know that name. You're like, oh, I made that one up. Hold on, let me check AI and see and hope I can find one. I'm pointing at that out, Destiny, that you made a claim without actually having the information. That doesn't mean that your argument is invalid. It's very possible that such information exists and we could examine it together. What I'm calling out, Destiny, is that you said this without knowing what you were talking about, whether you're right or wrong.
Gotcha.
No, wait a minute. There's no way, real quick, there's no way Destiny's using AI. Right, that wouldn't happen, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's not happening because that.
No. Oh, shoot.
Watt and Paulson paper on stream. Like I've gone through all of these court cases.
Sorry. We Jesse, we lost the feed. I don't know what you. I don't know what you said at the beginning there.
I linked the thing in the side. Okay. You can read this if you want. I'm going to paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5.
Sorry, you're going to what? We couldn't hear you. You were off.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
What are you looking at?
I'm going to paragraph 5 in the link that I put in the
link they put. I don't know what the link is. But hopefully they will bring it up.
StreamYard. Okay, on the side. It starts with historical precedent also confirms that a criminal conviction is not required for an individual to be disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. No one who has been formally disqualified under Section 3 was charged under the criminal rebellion or insurrection statute or its predecessors. This fact is consistent with Section 3's text, legislative history, and precedent, all of which make clear that a criminal conviction for any offense is not required for disqualification. Section 3 is not a criminal penalty, but rather is a qualification for holding public office in the United States that can be and has been enforced through civil lawsuits in state courts, among other means.
Okay, and what's the, is they have historic examples somewhere down here? I think they do at the bottom, right?
It seems they have a table with listing several people, I guess.
Yeah, so let's take a look and see what kind of examples they have, because he makes the statements, but I'm not sure what he's referring to.
Sure. So,
So,
the name here
like,
is Kenneth H. Worthy.
Corey held local office in a. Rob, would it be easier if we pulled this up? So, oh, you have it up. Sorry, I had it
yeah,
inside. Sorry, my
this is
bad.
where you're at, right, Destiny?
Yeah. Sorry, I had it in the side window. I didn't realize you had it up. Held local office in a Confederate state. Worthy's not accused of engaging in others. Public position when disqualified. County sheriff. Mandamus action by Worthy to challenge his disqualification by county commissioner under state law implementing Section 3. So this isn't federal. This is whether he can be a sheriff. I don't think there's a serious question that states can use this provision as to state offices.
Can I scroll, Destiny? Can I scroll down and see if there's a federal example? Is that fair?
This is a state example. Do you understand why that's not what we're talking about?
I mean, they're citing the same
state judge. Oh, U.S. senator. This might be a good one.
Sure, but also to be clear, they're citing the same amendment.
No, but Destiny, there's a very big difference between a state saying that you may not run for office within the state as a result of this amendment versus a state saying you may not run for federal office as a result of this.
North Carolina governor on the Confederacy serving Confederate Army. They're literally trying to figure out whether or not a person can or cannot serve in accordance to after Civil War. That's interesting. I thought he was playing the circle game. He's playing the circle game.
How would that difference play out in regards to the question of how you would adjudicate the question?
Sorry. I'm trying to see if this federal example makes sense because this might be what you're looking for. I just haven't worked through it. New York State governor.
But we can look at this if you want.
U.S. senator, Congress. If you don't care, we can stop looking at it. But Congress refused seat, although refused disqualification petition by losing candidate. Kansas resident. Oh, he was imprisoned during the Civil War.
Formally pardoned.
He was
in
granted
1867.
parole. It was kind of like a pardon. It's like a quasi pardon. And it's formally pardoned in 1877. Can we scroll down? Okay, they say he was challenged. I don't know how that turned out. So we could look up that court decision if it's of interesting.
Oh,
that seems
he
to
was
be the one that's
served.
closest to what you're talking about. But it just says that his position was challenged. It doesn't say how that was resolved.
It says right there.
Well, it says here that Georgia governor refused to commission him and Congress refused to seat him.
Yeah, Congress refused to seat him. Sure.
So,
and then it was. Sorry, I can't see anymore because can we scroll back up? So he was elected by state legislature to his U.S. Senate seat. His appointment was challenged by the losing candidate. Neither.
You thought that they lost their minds over this? Watch what happens when their list also applies to local state legislature districts. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be great.
Proceeded. At the time, President Andrew did not apply to U.S. former representatives. Can you scroll down? Sorry. Ultimately reelected in 1878. Oh, this is a different guy. Sorry, this is we're reading the wrong guy.
That's him. That's Vance, who's U.S. representative out of North Carolina. Sorry. Same guy.
Okay. Andrew Johnson did not apply. Ultimately, he was reelected in 1878 and served a long U.S. Senate tenure. So, I mean, I guess the question I would have is whether it was cured via what is it? Section 3 has the curing provision. I would assume that's how that happened. Okay. So this is the kind of example you're looking for, Destiny?
Sure.
That's the kind of example, but he served, didn't he?
Okay. So then the question would be, if there is some historic precedent of this happening, and this happening without a Supreme Court decision, what weight to give that evidence would be the way that a court would look at it. And this is a thing that happens a lot in various contexts. For example, in the context of birthright citizenship, there is tons of evidence of non-Supreme Court government actors denying birthright citizenship to temporary sojourners in the United States, even after the 14th Amendment was passed. The question is, how much weight will the court give to that evidence, which is typically not zero, but so less than they would give to a Supreme Court ruling, for example.
Focusing specifically on this, okay, I'm a retarded carpet cleaner, you're the legal guy. Tell me, what are some things that we might look at to determine what weight to give the actions of these states that were denying people access to federal office based on things that hadn't been adjudicated in a criminal court? What are some things that we might look at to figure out what
But at the end of the day, they were adjudicated. Because
the amendment means and how everybody was interpreting it.
Yeah, I think that what they would do is what the court did. They would weigh the evidence that there is some historic practice of here, generally speaking, in fairly chaotic times, and
at the end of the day, he served. It was okay.
I would also say, in this case, it was
I'm
a
sorry, wait, real
state
quick in the beginning.
appointing its own.
Did they do that in their Supreme Court decision? Were they talking about historic examples that supported the decision they made?
No, they went with the patchwork argument because this outweighed it. But and then they would weigh that against the problem of a national officer like the president having his access to the ballot deciding by individual states, and they decided that that was a patchwork nightmare, and therefore decided 9-0 against it. Again, it seems like the rule to the contrary would be completely unworkable. Do you disagree with that? Do you think that it
No.
would be viable?
Well, even in the North Carolina, even though it's going to be serving in the federal jurisdiction, I mean, it would still be under the provision of the state because it's a representative of the state. So that's a good question.
Like unworkable or chaotic, that's in my mind, that's not an argument against the Constitution. I'm sorry. Number one, some people would argue you're having this issue right now that the Supreme Court is chaotic and unworkable. So we need to pack the court is arguments that people are making, right? So my question is if we're changing this based on it being chaotic or unworkable, and we can't source this from history, what is even the argument that it would be chaotic and unworkable?
The
Can you give me an
argument,
example of that?
yeah. Let's say that Trump was taken off the ballot in Colorado by a civil case finding without even a criminal conviction that he was an insurrectionist.
Okay.
Well, let's say that then Texas passes a law that is called insurrection and has a very easy to meet standard. And for example, all of the I'm forgetting their names right now, but I could look them up if it matters, but I don't think it matters particularly. All of the senators who were charging ICE facilities are insurrectionists and therefore are ballot barred. If we say that, Harris or Newsom is an insurrectionist and is therefore ballot barred. And every state starts going down this slippery slope of deciding who gets to be on their ballot through partisan methods. And pretty soon, people think that the presidential election is a joke, which actually is the problem with court packing, because it turns the rule of law into a joke.
Gotcha.
Which is why I was criticizing you for calling a 9-0 decision vibes-based, because that seems to be, at least in my opinion,
so my question, I just want to say right here, I don't know why you're
warming up
appealing,
to, which is that you'd like the law to be called vibe-based, because then your decision to advocate for court packing looks less morally reprehensible.
Gotcha. Okay. So what if we thought that there was going to be a bunch of chaos caused by some small number of states doing some...
Okay, I think what he's gonna do right now, this is just me. But if I was Destiny, and I was in such a bad position already, what I would do is I would try to change it to the other side. Instead of being correct, in my opinion, I would just change it to the other side. Okay, I would do a "what about you" kind of thing. That's what I would do. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's going to happen.
Wacky and crazy things. Didn't Section 3 of the 14th Amendment provide us with a mechanism by which to escape that?
Not particularly, no.
There's not, the last sentence doesn't say something along the lines of the Congress can remedy this injury by passing a law that would make it so states can't cite to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to keep somebody off the ballot.
It sure did, Desmond.
I was backstage for these and I had to watch the whole time. Fucking disgusting. Avarice. Avarice. To be fair, you deserve it.
It sure
You made me watch. After watching JS for hours.
did. In that vein, I take it by that logic that you think that because the Senate did not convict Trump on his impeachment trial, that he did nothing wrong?
No, that has nothing to do with this question whatsoever.
It does. It turns out it's pretty hard to get a simple majority, let alone a 2/3 majority in the Senate. And if you're relying on the cure provision, which would have to be passed by both houses of Congress by a 2/3 margin in a country that looks anything like ours, that is an unavailable remedy. And since the court was engaging in prudential analysis, yeah, that strikes me as a thing that they would think is not actually going to serve any purpose.
Gotcha. So it'd be hard.
It would be non-functional. And again, this was
no,
not,
don't say non-functional. That doesn't make any sense.
This would not be
difficult.
an original. This is not an originalist opinion, Destiny. So yes, they're engaging in prudential analysis.
Gotcha. So then are we basically saying that it would be impossible to ever enforce Section 3, since by the logic of this court and you would have to pass a law to enforce it as per Section 5?
That such a law already exists.
To enforce Section 3?
Yeah.
What law?
There is a federal insurrection law. Jack Smith considered whether to charge Trump with the crime of insurrection.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here.
Yes, it would have, because if Jack Smith had convicted Trump of insurrection, he would have been ballot ineligible.
Where does that say that in the amendment? That the conviction is what makes that a thing? I don't have the language. I'm sorry, I can't read that. I don't see that anywhere.
No person shall be senator, representing Congress, or elector and president, or vice president, or hold any office, blah, 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 who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member, blah, 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 to support the Constitution, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion. So if you are convicted of engaging in insurrection, you are ineligible.
Wait, where is...
Yeah, you're just telling the obvious. The obvious part is he will be ineligible unless... Well, if he is doing any of those things.
You keep saying convicted. I'm sorry, where does that say that?
It does not say convicted, Destiny.
Okay. So let's talk. All of that didn't make any sense, and nothing to do. There is nothing in here requiring a conviction, and you would know.
I'm not saying it requires. No. That's a crazy goalpost shift. That's a crazy goalpost shift.
My question initially was.
Can we rewind 2 seconds? No, Destiny. Absolutely not.
You filibuster so much.
A few seconds ago, you said that this would be impossible to enforce, and I said Congress already passed a law which would allow for the enforcement of it, the crime of insurrection. Yes, a crime requires a conviction. That is the nature of a crime. I'm not saying that they had to make it a criminal law, Destiny. Listen to me for 2 seconds.
You're getting frustrated because
I am not saying it had to be a crime. I'm saying that the law that they passed is a criminal statute, so it could be enforced today had Jack Smith thought that he could get an insurrection conviction on Trump. He didn't think he could, and he wrote a memo explaining why he would not be able to get such a conviction, and then opted not to. But that doesn't mean the law doesn't exist, and what you said is that there's no way to enforce it. There is, it's just not something that was available in this instance.
What wasn't available? There was no crime of insurrection when this amendment was written?
Jack Smith made the determination that charging President Trump with insurrection was a legal non-starter and he would lose the case.
Yeah, because we don't really charge people with that crime. But that has nothing to do with Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. There's nothing in here about having been convicted of a crime.
Destiny.
You understand that, for instance, when it comes to impeachment,
Destiny, if you are convicted, honestly, this is so incredible.
I'm just kind of enjoying the conversation, to be honest. I'm trying to figure out what is his fucking position at this point. It's like, can you imagine if he's like, yeah, states can just take away whoever they want because they think it's an insurrection out of the ballot box, and we just take out all of the fucking Democrats. He's gonna be like, nah, that's not fair. They're doing these. What's the problem? They're about states' rights only when they aren't in charge. They're not consistent arguments. When they are in charge, they just ignore the state enforcement they don't like. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You'll see. You'll see in a moment.
This
Brian, you're
argument.
frustrated
Let's
because you're not
let's
using
see
a
if we
legal
can
mind right
simplify this
now.
for
You're
you.
trying to read this like a layman,
Destiny,
and you're getting
if you
frustrated
are
that the law doesn't
convicted,
support anything that you're saying.
Destiny,
Historically, and you would
if
understand
you
this,
are convicted,
if
okay,
you read the
say your thing,
Constitution
and then I'll
as
ask
a
you a few
harmonious
questions.
document
Doesn't
where the
matter. Go
language
ahead.
is consistent from start to finish,
Say your
you
thing.
would understand that disbarring people from holding office is not typically something that requires a criminal conviction. That's why impeachment very specifically does not consider criminal conviction when it comes to impeaching somebody from holding office. Much the same that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment also didn't require a criminal charge. You don't think they knew how to write criminal conviction? You don't think they knew the words to have in here to require some sort of crime to be, alleged or charged? No, they knew the language. Of course they did. And they explicitly did not leave it in here because criminal convictions are not usually part of what you
don't have a
use
piano.
to
Are you
disbar
done
from
yet?
somebody from holding office. I'm giving you the legal argument, and you're giving me the layman argument.
I don't have a piano. Let me know when you're finished.
I need a legal argument from you,
So
rather than it feels right. Go ahead.
After your wild goalpost shift, and I would love for
Which
people to
goalpost did I
rewind
shift?
and see exactly what you
What
said.
goalpost did I shift?
You said there was no way.
I just realized that this Tiny has a bunch of guns in the back. Funny and interesting.
To enforce Section 3. And
Why?
then I brought up
why did I
the
say there
fact,
was no way to
Jesse,
enforce
you just
Section
talked
3?
for 10 minutes. Let me
Why
talk.
did I say there was no way to
Destiny,
enforce
you
Section
just went on
3?
a rant, an endless
Why did
rant.
I say that?
Let me finish. You
Okay,
said
all I have to
that
say
there
is
was
you
no
can't cite
way to
anything I'm saying
enforce
correctly.
Section
I said you
3.
can't enforce Section 3 because
I
you're thinking
pointed
too hard to
out
pass it by
that there
both halves
is
of the
a way
Congress,
to
but
enforce
Section
Section
5 would also
3.
require a law to
The
be passed
way
by
to
both halves of the
enforce
Congress.
Section
So it
3
seems
is to
self-defeating.
get a criminal conviction because there is a criminal law on the books.
Trench Deacon, good afternoon. Good to see you, sir.
Congress could have, but did not, and has not yet passed a civil version of that. I am not saying a criminal conviction is necessary under the Constitution. You said it was impossible to enforce this. I pointed out that there is a law that allows the enforcement of it today, and that the only reason it wasn't enforced in that way is because they did not have the evidence to support such a conviction. I was responding to your erroneous point,
It's not
and the
because you have
goalpost.
no way.
Saying,
You
I
see a
am not,
similar
just to be
word.
totally clear,
You just don't
I
do,
am
you don't
not
do legal
saying,
analysis.
Destiny, that a criminal conviction
Such
is
a POS
required under the
hypocrite.
Constitution. I was responding.
He believes how the shit claims he will live in Chicago and not in red states like these D-backs. Yeah. Probably airsoft. Maybe. Not entirely sure. He is very pro Second Amendment, for what I know.
To your statement that there is no way to enforce this today. There is a way to enforce this today. Would you like me to give you the statute?
Nothing in this amendment calls out the necessity for a criminal conviction. You're fabricating that language.
I'm not, Destiny, I'm going to say this to you for like the 5th time because I'm not sure if you're just not listening or you're just invested in being bad faith about this. I am not saying a criminal conviction is required. You said earlier that there was no way to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, and I said there is a way.
Yeah, well,
there is a
hold on.
criminal statute.
Okay, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. The reason why I said there's no way to do it is because the way to do it would be, by your argument, via Section 5. But you're saying that it would be unreasonable to expect that Congress would vote by 2/3 on the upper and lower body to remove such a disability. So I'm asking why you would expect Congress to be able to apply such a disability.
Because they already have. The reason I think it's reasonable is because they already have. There is a criminal law that's been passed. It's 8 USC Section 2383, rebellion or insurrection. You should be familiar with it because you debated about this law for like 2 years. So you know the law exists. And obviously, if you were convicted of insurrection, then Section 3 would apply to you. So
wait, why would Section 3? Wait. So you're saying that if I look up 18 USC 2383, it would say Section 3 then applies to you?
No, Destiny. I'm saying, okay, let me try to work this out.
No. Don't use an analogy. Stop running because you understand that you're saying them. Oh my God. Why are you using analogies? You're confusing the initial argument. An analogy is used to flesh out an argument. I'm just going to talk because you can't.
I think
right?
even you can get.
I'm just gonna talk. No, I'm just gonna talk. Oh. Let's move on. Because I want to go to when they're talking about the gerrymandering.
You don't think it's obvious whether originalism is contentious between the left and the right? It's the most contentious legal issue.
generally understood that although it was not fun.
Agree with you. I think it was clear that they couldn't, but it had been unresolved. So lower courts were deciding the question on their own. And the example that Rob
Would
gave
you say that if
Gilby
somebody was
Whitford
brought
is an
back as a
example of
zombie,
a
if
lower.
somebody's brought back
Let me
from the
finish-
dead, if somebody was brought back
let
from
me
the dead,
finish my-
because you always ramble on some. If somebody's brought back
if
from
you
the dead,
actually
and an undead
listen to what I
zombie,
was saying,
and an
you
undead
would
zombie,
know the answer to these
would you say that
questions.
it's unresolved right now as to how we like treat this person? Like, would they follow no laws? Like, you use this like very weird language to make this claim that like
He blocks non-subscribers from chat. Then when you do, it says only subscribers 5 minutes so long can chat. Then when you get to talk and you say, "Yeah, I cheated in 2020," he's like, "Time to end the stream." This seems like a veiled threat, considering his words about conservatives should veer and all that. He's always doing threats, always.
anything could happen because there's an unresolved question. Like there's a trillion things that we could imagine are unresolved before the court because the court hasn't like specifically been asked this particular question.
Real quick, Ryan,
I can explain this, but
it says the reasons. Real quick, it says the reasons that they allowed the federal court to do this was that it violated the Equal Protection Clause and the plaintiff's First Amendment freedom of association. Now, I don't agree with that. Ryan doesn't agree with it. And Destiny, it sounds like you don't agree with it. But that's the rationale they gave for the federal courts weighing it.
Yes. And Destiny, when I'm saying it's unresolved, that means that we have multiple circuits, multiple circuit courts, multiple district courts. If the Supreme Court has not ruled on the issue, then you're going to have some district courts ruling one way, some district courts ruling another way, some circuit courts ruling one way, some circuit courts ruling another way, without a clear resolution of what the law is.
So you're telling me, so wait, just to understand what you're
He gets away with a bunch of shit because he makes some money and he's a fucking lefty.
The Supreme Court resolved the point.
Just so I understand what you're saying, you're telling me that prior to 2019, there were multiple courts on the federal level. There were circuits, there were district courts that were saying you can't partisan gerrymander?
At least one. That's the Gilby Whitford case.
You said district courts and circuit courts. And in this one, it sounds like they got shot down.
I was explaining to you what unresolved means. Unresolved means that courts are free to interpret differently.
I understand what unresolved means.
Well, then why are you asking the question if you understand?
Because this is not a question where all the courts were ruling in a hodgepodge of different ways. I don't think that's true. I think it was generally understood that although it was a not fine part of our democracy, that gerrymandering politically was the thing that was acceptable federally. That was not
Rob just showed you a case where they ruled the opposite way.
Here's another.
No, hold on. They didn't rule the opposite way. They ruled in accordance to what my understanding would be and what I think the entire country's understanding would be about partisan gerrymandering.
What do you think that is?
That it was allowed.
No, because that's what happened in the case Rod showed you, Gilby Whitford. The court struck, not the Supreme Court, the lower court struck a gerrymandered map as being unconstitutional as a partisan gerrymander because the issue was unresolved. So the lower courts were free to come up with their own constitutional interpretation. When the Supreme Court resolved the constitutional issue, the lower courts are no longer free.
You say they were free to do it. They weren't free to do it. They made their rules.
Not at that point. When there is a higher court decision, the lower court has to follow the higher court decision. That's the point that he's making. This is a very simple idea, by the way. It's not like he's talking some strange legalese. We know this because there were a bunch of different decisions. For example, when it comes to civil rights, or when it comes to, for example, the corn industry. There were a bunch of different decisions until the Supreme Court weighed on it.
Ruling, and then the Supreme Court said, "No, that ruling's wrong."
Again, but you're going back and forth. Again, what we're saying here is, in fact, there were one of these was the test case that was used in the decision for the Supreme Court. We had a rash of at least 3 maps that federal courts weighed in prior to 2019. Here you see another one in Maryland. Federal court thrown out the state's congressional map and ordered a new one drawn ahead of the 2020 elections. So what was happening was increasingly there were these gerrymandered maps.
You got it. You got to give me the case. I need to know what the fuck we're even.
Okay. The case is, let's see, Benisik v. Lemon. So BENIS. It's on the screen there. I don't have to read it.
While you're looking it up, just to make the very, very obvious point, time operates linearly. Prior to 2019, it was unresolved. Lower courts make their own rulings because the Supreme Court has not spoken. In 2019, it is resolved. So post 2019, lower courts are not free to make up their own conclusions as to this issue because it was unresolved prior to RUCO and resolved post RUCO.
Well, but unresolved prior, my question would be, was there a whole deluge of a difference of rulings across different circuits for whether or not partisan like, was it consistently upheld in the Ninth Circuit that partisan gerrymanders were not allowed? Was it consistently upheld in the Fifth Circuit that partisan gerrymanders were allowed?
I don't know, but Rob provided you with 2 examples of it not being allowed. So there's at least 2 examples of courts doing what the Supreme Court later clarified they were not permitted to do.
Sure, but then the question is on what grounds were these not allowed? I haven't read these cases. It sounds like neither of you have as well. So I'm curious on what grounds were they thrown out literally just because?
No, as described, they said that they violated the, if I recall from Rob from the thing you showed, the Equal Protections Clause and aspects of the First Amendment. I, by the way, I agree with the court that that's a nonsense rationale.
Violating Equal Protections Clause is like saying then that partisan gerrymanders are not okay. That's what they're saying, right?
That's what the lower courts were saying. The lower courts were saying partisan gerrymandering is not okay.
So what I'm asking is for that the Equal Protections Clause, was the argument that the plaintiffs were making in that case, was it based on the fact that it was simply partisan gerrymandering, or was there another argument that they were using?
I'm sure they had multiple arguments. They always have multiple arguments, but partisan gerrymandering was at least one of their arguments.
But Destiny, I don't understand your argument here anyways. It's clear that the federal courts were weighing in, saying that these maps couldn't be drawn this way. And then in 2019, the Supreme Court came in and said that that was changing, that these maps were not something that could be adjudicated by federal courts. So it seems like you're arguing just for the sake of arguing.
Well, no, the argument is that we all had an understanding of what Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act meant, and Alito basically destroyed this entire thing such that it's no longer a congressional law, which is kind of irritating because in the past they've appealed so much to, say that like for Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, well, the Congress has to write a law to go further to tell us what they really mean. And then we've had Section 2 of the...
Now we're going to be moving, I think, to the new idea, which is the one that I found to be extremely interesting, to be honest. Oh, by the way, South Carolina just passed its redistricting in the state house yesterday. They are 1 vote away from eliminating 1 unearned seat. Dems had for 20 plus years. That's awesome. Destiny gets, Thank you very much for the $5 to W Radio. He sends the message 5 grifties. I apologize that I cannot pull it up right now. The application I usually use to bring up chats is down. Also, Black Republican woman gained a seat as a result of this, so of course they don't report that. When DeSantis moves on, Byron Donalds will be governor of Florida. So this racist is nonsensical. I don't think there's the whole idea of the racism is they were literally using a specific interpretation to give seats to Democrats just because. That's
Voting
it.
Rights Act that Congress and the Supreme Court have had an understanding of what it's meant for a long time, and now the Supreme Court has basically nullified Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and said we can now do racial gerrymandering. Okay. We can do all partisan gerrymandering. It's okay to do that now.
And now we can circle back to my explanation, which is that Section 2 of the VRA says you cannot give a racial minority bloc lesser opportunity.
Yep.
But post 2019 in RUCO, when partisan gerrymandering was resolved, you can partisan gerrymander anyone, including white people. Anybody can be partisan gerrymandered. So if a minority group is partisan gerrymandered, they do not have a lesser opportunity than the majority does,
but you still
because the majority is also being partisan gerrymandered.
So you can't actually say that. You can't say I'm going to racially gerrymander. Even Alito says that would still be tossed. But you can say that you're partisanly gerrymandering, which is the only reason why you would ever do a racial gerrymander. So racial gerrymandering has, in effect, through a legal alchemy, has been made legal by Alito, in direct contradiction to what would have been hoped for by the Voting Rights Act.
So to quote Thomas Sowell, when you're used to preferential treatment, equality feels like discrimination. Mm-hmm. Yes, Destiny.
I don't know why we're
because in a world
arguments like
in a world where everybody is being partisan gerrymandered, it would be a special privilege given.
This is not a legal argument. This is not a legal argument. So a Destiny governor is a black Republican. I'm curious what he will cry about then. He will always cry. Crying is the basic way of life of Destiny. Okay? It's like, what does he usually do? Cry.
Only to minority
are
groups,
vibes.
not
It's
to be
disappointing.
partisan gerrymandered. So
Okay.
yes, if in a world where everyone is being partisan gerrymandered, minority blocks are not given lesser opportunity by being treated the exact same as the majority block. If you're being treated the exact same, that's not a lesser opportunity. That's the
Literally
same.
is, but that's why. But we didn't want to treat them the exact same. That's why Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act existed.
Yeah, but that's not why it existed. It existed because you wanted to give them the same opportunity. You are opening the idea of them being able to vote, not to give them extra bullshit, right? And this is when interpretation is important. And I wonder why Destiny is so mad.
That was the whole point.
Okay, but that's not what they wrote. In Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, it says that it's
Oh, the Ashton could see you.
illegal if you use these means to give these minority blocks a lesser opportunity. That's the language that they used in the Voting Rights Act.
They said that if in a totality of circumstances, it seemed like minority voters in a state had their vote consistently overturned by majority voters in a state, that would be bad, that they would have the right to bring a Section 2 claim, basically, through the Gingles or Jingles framework, however you pronounce it, and that they would be allowed to have a majority-minority map drawn if they were consistently getting overturned by the majority white voters, basically, in that state.
Okay, Destiny, do you think that's the direct quote from what they said? Is that the operative legal terminology, you think?
Well, considering that you just Googled it and you're looking at it right now and you're going to pretend that you've memorized the language, my guess is I'm probably not quoting it exactly, but I think I got the spirit of the law correct. Yes.
Okay. So when Alito was talking about this law and saying, using this phrase about about opportunity, you think that he was just making it up? Wasn't in the law at all?
He
I'm not
literally did make it up. Yes. If you actually read the case, which I know you didn't because you don't read any of these that you talk about, he goes through each of the words and he basically invents his own cool definition. And then from there, everything kind of logically follows. So he defines opportunity as the way you're defining it right now in a novel way that's never been defined or applied in any prior Supreme Court case. And then that's where he arrives at his
So
new construction,
if
what he calls an updated Google's framework.
If the majority is being partisan gerrymandered, and the minorities are being partisan gerrymandered, how is that unequal?
Well, if the minority, if their opportunity to have a vote to send a representative to the Congress is consistently overturned by the majority race of that state, then under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, then you would say it seems like, they have been frustrated. Their vote has
Okay,
been...
but
Quite literally, what he's saying is the moment, and Rob is gonna say this again. If you have a bunch of ninjas from Tokyo, okay, and these ninjas for Tokyo are enough people on a state, and they just lose 2-3 times to get their own ninja. Now they can go ahead and claim that they can get their own gerrymandering and their own seat because they are a ninja minority and they lost. That's dumb. That's the dumbest bullshit I've ever heard in my life. I'm glad that the Supreme Court has decided on this. This is a big W for Trump. Big W for Trump. Okay? All the people complaining about how Trump is so mean and evil and shit, all of them, just because of this decision, can go kiss my ass. Like, he has had 2 decisions that are absolutely legendary. Absolutely legendary. The Roe v. Wade and this decision.
my ability to put somebody into Congress is also being frustrated by partisan gerrymandering. How is it unequal that partisan gerrymandering is legal in both cases unless there's some overt racial issue that's involved.
Because
Like
partisanship
my
was
state
not
partisan
partisanship.
gerrymander is me, Destiny.
The partisan gerrymander was not what it was about. It was about racial groups having their vote, their voice
Well, I mean,
represented.
technically, you're right. Partisan gerrymander was not what it was about. In fact, I agree with Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch that partisan gerrymandering was never actually covered by the VRA, and this whole thing has been a misadventure in law to act that it ever did. What it actually covered was things like poll taxes, literacy tests, actual denial of the right to vote, or actual denial of your right to have your vote counted. That's what it covered. But if we're going to say that we're going to...
Yeah, that's what it was for. Okay, the protections on the Civil Act was supposed to protect the people so that their vote will count. So that nobody could go on and attack the capacity for them to share their ballot and vote. Oh, wait, there's another thing. The House passes legislation to stop transgender indoctrination of our kids in schools nationwide. 217-198.
Not use that.
I guess that fucking works, right? It's awesome.
Argument, then we are stuck with its language, which includes this idea that you cannot have minority groups treated less than the majority groups. But if you're treating them equally to the majority groups, you're not treating them less than the majority.
But they wouldn't be treated equally if their vote is always overtaken by the majority groups in the state.
My vote is always overtaken.
They're losing ground and they go for Luigi Mangione, then you get capitalists like Mark Cuban and Jeff Bezos saying, I'm liking what Republicans are doing. Yeah, I don't trust those fuckers though. I don't trust those fuckers.
Destiny.
How? In what state?
New Jersey.
In New Jersey, white people don't have their candidates of choice elected to the House of Representatives?
No, in New Jersey, I live in districts that are broken up on partisan lines so that somebody who's going to vote for the right will not be able to get... Yes, it is. Because when they...
Where in the Voting Rights Act does it talk about partisanship? It's talking about majority-minority racial groups.
Yes, and in...
You as a white person have more what other white people are voting for in New Jersey. Those candidates are...
And in Louisiana, the issue there is that when they drew up the map, they drew it up on partisan lines, and it also happened to have an impact on minority blocks. That's the issue.
Minority people vote along partisan lines, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always, yes.
Correct.
But the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act said that if minority groups' votes were consistently being defeated by the majority racial group,
oh, there we go.
that they are allowed to have a majority-minority district created. They were allowed to bring a Section 2 Voting Rights Act case to the Supreme Court.
They're back. Finally. I don't know what happened. That was so weird. Oh, but yeah. So... Oh no, not this one. Where is it? Alright. Here it is. I can finally showcase. Hey Ashton. Now we can see that losing ground. Man, I'm learning so much. Yeah.
To have a district
to the district court. But yeah, you bring it to a district court, definitely. But yeah, so, but that's what it means when you say less opportunity than what?
Than the other racial group.
Then, yeah. And in a world where partisan gerrymandering is the norm, where everyone's getting partisan gerrymandered, you don't have less opportunity if you are being treated the same.
You do if the racial groups vote on partisan lines. If there was a black party and a white party, literally, then the black party was all...
Yeah, but it doesn't exist. Not in the same sense. There is no such thing as the black party because they vote them, or there is a white party because they vote Republican. It doesn't exist. That's not the reasoning.
Gerrymandered out on partisan lines, according to
there basically is, Destiny, a black party in Louisiana.
Exactly, and the Voting Rights Act said, Section 2, you can't do that. But now Alito says you can.
Which then would mean that uniquely in Louisiana cannot gerrymander on partisan lines, but California can, but Nevada can, but Massachusetts can, but all these other states can.
Wait, not if they're frustrating a minority group's vote.
Well, they're not frustrating a minority group's vote.
then there's no problem under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. But there would be in Louisiana if they were.
The technical distinction, Destiny, is that the minorities are, of course, still able to vote regardless of gerrymandering.
It's not about if you're able to vote. It's if you're able to have a vote that is represented in your state's House elections that isn't consistently defeated by the majority race.
Okay, 1 second. That's insane. You don't really believe that, right?
That's
That can't be the
Section 2 of Voting
interpretation.
Rights Act. That's what
No,
the
no, no,
majority
no,
of
no.
over 37.
The only reason why they're saying this in reality is because they want to have power. And what they're saying is, oh, when we're doing the gerrymandering, it was about for us to get more power in the House so that we can get all the power that we needed. That's the point. That's what they were wanting. There is absolutely no reason to believe in destiny at this point in time. Bandit says, about time you got out of the coffin. I'm always out of the coffin.
7 years. That's how the Supreme Court has understood it, and that's how all the legislature have understood
Okay,
it.
but if that's the case, let's say a particular state, we'll say hypothetically is 10% black. And for those 10% blacks, we're so unracist, we give them those 10% to draw the map they want. And still they lose. You say, according to the Voting Rights Act, they're not allowed to lose. The mere fact that they lost implies that the Voting Rights Act has been violated because blacks have a right to win. That's bullshit. That's not what the Voting Rights Act says. It says that you can't have special tools designed to disenfranchise people based on race. It doesn't say they're guaranteed to win. And if they lose too much, then we have to change something. That's ridiculous.
I agree. That's why there was a test to determine whether or not a minority group was being frustrated by the majority group. This was the, I don't know if you remember the Jingles or Gingles framework.
It's the Gingles test, yeah.
Yes. The idea was you have to represent a sizable minority group that is in a contiguous district. So it can't be 10% of people scattered throughout the state. And their vote has to be consistently defeated by the majority racial group of the state. These are the three preconditions for this framework to be met. So if it was the case that black people voted 50-50, half Republican, half Democrat, you have no Section 2 case. If it was the fact, you have no voting rights case. If it was the fact that the black people were equally scattered throughout the state, you can't make a contiguous district, you have no case. If they're 1% of the population of the state, and they don't represent a sizable minority, you have no case. So there were plenty of defeaters built into Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to make sure that these types of cases, exactly these types of cases, wouldn't be brought before any courts, any federal courts.
Rob, can you pull up my screen? So Destiny, this is the map that Louisiana was forced to draw under the under the VRA prior to Calais. This
Look at those districts. They're not scattered or anything. Coming out of the coffin, like coming out of the closet for vampires. Shit, no. I'm staying in the fucking closet. If I was, I'm not. But if I was, I would be staying in the fucking closet.
see this crazy district here? Would you say that that's a contiguous district that looks like a sane district that anyone would draw under any normal circumstances?
Well,
it stretches 250 miles, Destiny.
What's the answer to that? The answer to that is I would have to look to case law to see what has been considered a
Okay,
contiguous
but you
district.
just gave a bunch of factors, Destiny.
Correct.
You just gave a bunch of factors. Do you want to repeat them? You had a good list.
I'm not, first of all, I'm not a judge. If I wanted to know how to apply the
Destiny,
factors,
You just explained.
First of all, I'm not a judge. Fucking idiot.
To us how you were explaining how the VRA works.
I'm saying that as applied, I don't know, for contiguous, like if you would ask me, well, what if they were 8% of the population? I don't know what constitutes a sizable minority. I don't know 100%. I'm just saying that this was the framework that existed before. This is the framework that Alito has destroyed. That's what I'm saying.
So under the framework that you're exalting, Louisiana was forced by a federal court to draw this insane district that stretched 250 miles across the country in order to give the black population in Louisiana a second district, because the map that Louisiana drew did not give them a second district. In fact, under the VRA, Louisiana was essentially forced to do one of the most naked racial-based gerrymanders I've ever seen. Now, this doesn't strike me as equal. This strikes as you're being given a opportunity. You're being given a
Rob Raid. Damn. Thank you very much to Rob Knorr. He was doing a call-in show today. Thank you very much, good sir. Welcome, Raiders. You hit that like, it will be greatly appreciated. We are looking at the last rage quit from none other than Destiny himself. But yeah, God bless to the Norbiters. Welcome. God bless to Rob Nor himself, who is a legend. Thank you for the support.
Greater opportunity than anyone in any state would get but for the VRA. This is not equal, this is more. This is a special privilege that was given to minority voters, and the problem that Alito was identifying is that the VRA says less opportunity.
Okay,
if you're
listen.
treated equally,
Yes,
then it's not a VRA
understand.
claim.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was an insane take. Okay? This is the insane take from Destiny, where he says that if you have a minority group that consistently loses in the political arena, you have to gerrymander a district for them so that they can win. And when he's presented with the evidence, a full-on, weird-ass looking district that makes no sense, that is based directly on race, he pretends that it's fine. It's what the law is supposed to be doing. Because all he wants is power. They don't have standards. All they care is power. This is why I don't have a problem by telling people, well, this is about power. And yes, we want to have standards, but first we get power, and then we get standards, okay? First we get powers on our side, and then we think about the standards we want to impose.
I understand. I agree. So like this is okay. And I'm glad you said this, okay? Because this was the argument and this is what happened.
We don't give them the power and then pretend that we're going to be working on our standards. That makes no fucking sense.
Is you just don't like the Voting Rights Act. Alito didn't like Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and you don't like the fact that a minority group is getting some kind of special privilege to be heard here, which is fine, by the way. You can make that argument, but that's not what the Voting Rights Act said. And Alito didn't like it, and he got rid of it. They didn't get rid of it legislatively, like they probably should have. Alito got rid of it by legislating from the bench, which is exactly what he did, because you don't like the idea that a minority group had a special district created for it, which was the whole fucking point of the Voting Rights Act. Otherwise, why would we even have it? We could just point to the 14th Amendment. We could just scream over and over again, equal protections, equal protections, equal protections. And then boom, we'd be done with it. Why do we even need this law in the first place then?
So, Destiny, when the law said less opportunity, you think we should just ignore that language? We should say, actually, you know what? We're giving, as you just said, minority voters a special power, a greater power, an unequal benefit, rather than rectifying when they are deprived of something that non-minority voters get. So I think you gave the game away, Destiny. I think you gave the game away.
What do you think the point of it was?
The point of it was to make sure that we had a colorblind constitution where voters...
At least he admits he wants special privileges. Well, he admits it, but he says that that's what we want. Right? And at first he was like, no, it's not a special privileges. That's the way it was supposed to work. It's retarded. Sorry. It started. It is in reality, this is some of the worst, like, arguments I've ever heard in my life. And I'm so happy that that both Rob and
who are minorities were treated equally.
And Rob and Ryan were able to dismantle him.
They couldn't be treated worse. What you're arguing is that they should be treated better.
Wait, if it was to be colorblind, why is there any language at all in there whatsoever about minority-majority districts? Or why is there any language in there whatsoever about the majority race overtaking the vote of the minority people?
To force equality coming out of segregation, and we can go back and forth if you want on the benefits and drawbacks of passing laws that would otherwise be unconstitutional in order to rectify past harms of discrimination. It's a rich area if you want to go there, but the language that they used was less opportunity. But what you're describing, Destiny, is the desire to give minorities not equal opportunity, but greater opportunity. And this actually is, I think, a very substantive disagreement. I don't think it's appropriate to give people special powers or special privileges on the basis of their race. I actually think that's racist.
Yep.
That's great if you think that. And I agree with you. I agree that you can have that thought. No, I agree you can have that thought. But then what you wanted was a repeal of the Voting Rights Act. That's what you wanted, and that's
No,
what
I wanted the Voting Rights Act to be interpreted consistent with the 2019 case RUCO, which thank God now it is. What you want, Destiny, and as you said, is
when it
you
says
want,
don't say what I want. You have no idea. You
certain
project
people,
so hard.
you
Oh my
want
God,
certain
bro.
people
I'm not even
to
you're not
get a
capable of
special
having the legal
benefit
argument.
on the
Can
basis
you
of their
please
race.
Try
Could
just to have a
somebody
legal
clip
argument.
that, by the way?
Just try to have a legal argument. Holy
I feel like
shit.
actually Destiny came out and said that openly. Like you
No,
did
I'm
say
just
you,
telling you what the Voting Rights Act says, okay? And I understand that you're saying now you don't like it, which is a fair opinion to have. You can even argue that opinion, but that's not the job of the Supreme Court to decide. That
Oh, now it's not the job of the Supreme Court to decide and legislate from the bench. But when it comes to all the bullshit they did, at that point, what?
that's the job of Congress to decide, right?
you're telling me what it says?
That the Voting Rights Act was created to protect racially minority voters.
So you're not telling me what it says. You're telling me what the intent was.
Do you think that the Voting Rights Act was to protect the majority vote of white people in the United States?
No, I'm trying to figure out what your argument is, Destiny. First, you're saying that's not what it says, but what it literally says is that they cannot have less opportunity than other members of the electorate. So
True.
They can't have less opportunity. If they have the same opportunity, they don't have less opportunity, which is my point. You're saying, and you openly said that they should have more. They should have unequal powers, and that's not in the text of the Voting Rights Act.
What does opportunity mean?
Less opportunity than other members of the electorate to elect representatives of their choice.
Correct. So if you have 85% white people in a state and 15% black people in a state, who is that going to protect more?
It depends, Destiny, on the partisan makeup of the state, because nobody has the right.
I'm going to leave if you can't answer this question. If you have 85% white people,
it depends on the partisan makeup of the state.
Do you think that the white districts are?
Next time he says that, Ryan and Rob should say, "Well, go, fucking leave." He's about to run. Don't worry.
Going to be gerrymandered
we're
out?
getting there.
Who does this protect in general?
Let me explain the point. If the 85% and the 15% were split 50-50 between the parties, and the state nonetheless gerrymandered it so that the black people got no district, that would be a violation of the VRA even after Calais.
But it wouldn't be, though, right?
No, it would be post.
It literally wouldn't, because they would still have the members that they wanted elected would still be elected.
Yes,
that was the whole point. Even if they're somehow gerrymandered out, the members that they want to elect.
Go back to my example. Go back to my example. I said if the 85 and the 15 were equally split between the political parties, right? And then the state nonetheless gerrymandered it so that black people didn't get a district, that would be a violation of the VRA even post Calais.
Gotcha.
What
Can
happens
I ask, if the racial groups were split 50-50 in how they would vote, why would we even have a Voting Rights Act?
Well, Destiny,
the Voting Rights Act is to allow the citizens to vote without caring whether or not of their gender or skin tone or anything. As long as you're a citizen, you're allowed to vote. That's the point of it. I'm going to leave because I just told you we don't want equality. Sure. That is true. That's the reason why. Hey, Seth, it's been a while. Good to see you, sir.
It turns out that there were big ramifications for making partisan gerrymandering legal. And you might disagree with that, but I think earlier you said that you agreed with it, that you thought it was the right outcome.
Wait. I'll agree with Destiny. There's an easy answer to this question.
Uh-huh.
Even if all of the Democrats or even if all the blacks were going to vote for one party or the other, or in the other world, they were even 50-50, the Voting Rights Act still said you can't put a poll tax. You can't have some sort of test that's intentionally to keep blacks from voting. And the argument, well, it doesn't matter. They would have canceled each other's votes out because half would vote Republican and half Democrat, is not to the point whatsoever. So the Voting Rights Act had nothing to do with the outcome of who gets elected more, the Democrats or the Republicans. By the way, it would be the racist Democrats that they were actually fighting against, but I digress.
The people all in the South states right now that their ancestors were all Democrats, right? The Republicans of today whose ancestors
now they're good
were Democrats,
people.
right?
They've realized their mistake of being Democrat.
Right? Exactly.
That's right. It's always been the Democrats that were racially focused.
I would pay thousands of dollars to fight Steiny. Are you sure you want to hit that? Just touching it? I wouldn't want to get near that person ever in my life. I would think 100% that he would. I would catch herpes just by touching him.
Yes.
Of course. So Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act would never exist if the votes were along 50-50 party lines. Right?
Destiny, let
No, Rob just
Destiny,
answered this.
w-
Rob just
listen,
answered that.
let me.
I'm talking
Do you
specifically
think that-
about Section
Okay.
2 of the Voting Rights Act.
Right. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which says that you can't have a qualification or prerequisite to voting or standard practice or procedure based on race, basically, right? And you're telling me that if Democrats voted 50% Republican and 50% Democrats, that we would have looked at that law when it was being passed and said, it's perfectly fine to do whatever you want to keep black people from voting because, if they voted, it would be equal Republican. Of course not. We would still have a law.
No, it just
No,
wouldn't be a thing to talk
Destiny,
about.
the
Why
law-
would
the-
anybody want to try to disenfranchise voters if they're likely to vote either way? The whole point was
Because
for
they're
partisan
racist?
power.
Because they were racist.
Because
Yeah, that's the reason why, because they were racist. That was the only reason why. Also, because probably they're women and to be fair, it's not all women. Some women should not vote. Maybe most women shouldn't vote.
That's
you think that, so you think in the past,
And most men.
you're laughing and you're making the dumbest point possible that people would have given up political power for racist gerrymandering? The same people that brought you the 3/5 compromise
Yes.
would have said,
No.
well, we know that these blacks are going to vote for us, but let's go ahead and gerrymander them out
No.
anyway, because fuck it, so that we lose.
This-
Do you understand
this
how
actu-
stupid that
this
is? There would
actually
be
is-
no purpose for the Voting Rights Act to
Destiny.
exist if we all voted on racially partisan lines anyway, which is what Alito has completely brought us back to. Do you agree? I'm just curious. You agree that there will never be a Section 2 case that like a federal court can realistically hear now, right?
No, there could be some. It depends on.
And let
Give me
me
an
ask
example of
you.
one. Give me an example of one.
Whole
Because
factor.
now, no. Well, besides that's obviously out of the case. I mean, for gerrymanders.
Literacy tests.
For gerrymanders.
Okay. So for gerrymanders, to bring a case now, what you need to show is that they could have achieved their partisan purpose.
Hey Caleb, good to see you, friend. Actually, during that time, black people voted heavily Republican. Yes. The shift didn't happen because the people changed. The shift in who voted for who was because the Democratic Party sold out the workers and pretty much realized that they could very easily buy votes. They just buy the votes.
And that
Good to see you, Caleb. It's been a while. By that logic, the mask would look like Pollock painting. Yep. Don't forget Count Jelly Beans. I will box the Steiny for free just because he breathed next to me.
there is an alternative map that did not take race into an account that would have done it without disenfranchising, quote
Correct.
unquote, members of that group.
Which totally defeats the entire challenge.
No, it just makes
Because-
it harder.
No, it doesn't make it harder. You have to demonstrate that any map that you would propose achieves the same partisan ends that their map would
Yes,
propose.
because the partisan ends are legal.
But the whole reason why they're gerrymandering is for partisan ends.
Okay, but earlier you said that you agreed that partisan gerrymandering should
Why are
be
you
legal.
changing this earlier? I'm telling you that right now you
Because
can
you said it
gerrymander
earlier, Destiny.
races
You
out of
said-
existence. You can gerrymander the races by claiming it's partisan, but the only reason why you gerrymander is for partisan purposes. That was the whole point.
Listen, you've moved
No,
on
they-
quickly.
they-
If I can't, you've moved on quickly from a point I think that's absolutely absurd. The claim that the VRA would have been unnecessary if Democrats split 50-50 or if blacks split 50-50 in how they vote. So let me ask you specifically then, if that's true and no one would have ever pushed for that, let's say hypothetically tomorrow, blacks 90% become Trump supporters and Republican supporters. If there all of a sudden was rules placed to disenfranchise black voters, would you speak up for them and say that that's absurd and that's illegal?
Well, I mean, right now, as per Alito's ruling, you'd be allowed to strip them of their voting abilities by gerrymandering their thing on a partisan boundary.
It's not the question I asked. That's the question if you specifically would say that that's something, if they just flat out say blacks are no longer allowed to vote.
Using the 3/5 compromise to call someone racist is hard or retarded. Not counting them at all wouldn't be in more racist position. Yeah, probably. Hey, Dusty, good to see you.
That's good for you now because they're going to vote for Republicans. So would you say perfectly fine by me? I'm fine with
They
blacks
just
not
ban
being able
black
to.
people from voting?
Correct. Or
I
let's say
don't
they
think-
do it through literacy and poll tax. Literacy test and poll tax. Would you be okay with that?
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
Therefore, you disprove your entire argument. Yes, even if it would have been a 50-50 split, there still would have been people that said you can't specifically keep black people from voting. You
Yep.
disprove your entire argument by showing you would be one of those people.
What?
You said that if blacks voted 50-50, no one would have ever suggested a law to prevent poll taxes or to prevent literacy
you just
tests
said if-
or
you
other
said if they
things
would
to
have
keep
voted-
them from
I thought
voting.
you said if the blacks voted 90% conservatives.
Correct. And you
Okay.
said, even in that world, you, who is clearly not a conservative and dislikes them, would have said, yes, it's still wrong to disenfranchise them. That's exactly my point. There are people that would have said you can't disenfranchise black people, even if they're voting 50-50, because it's still unhuman, it's still against their rights, etc. As you're doing right
I
now.
don't even know how you would gerrymander them on racial boundaries if they voted 50-50. This is why
Because-
the Section 2 argument doesn't work here, and I think Kagan pointed it out well in her dissent that
Because
the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act basically defeats itself if the races are all voting relatively separately, because you would never be able to make a contiguous district of minority voters whose vote was being suppressed by the majority voters.
Because you're conflating that the Voting Rights Act was specifically or primarily about gerrymandering, which
Yep.
was never the case. That's why when you're looking at it through the lens of gerrymandering and you're talking about a 50-50 split, you're like, the Voting Rights Act would have never been necessary. Yes, it would have, because the primary purpose was Jim Crow laws of
talking
like poll
specifically
taxes,
Section
literacy
2.
tests, etc.
Section 2 is the big part of the Voting Rights Act that Alito
Correct.
basically destroyed. So that's basically is
No,
what
no,
people
no.
have been talking
He
about. Is
did
Section 2
not.
of the Voting Rights Act. Of course he did.
not.
It's fun.
He did not destroy the part which the primary focus with things like poll taxes, literacy tests, etc. The reason, the intent of it was never gerrymandering. That was never the intent. So when you
Yeah, the whole point of the idea was to stop people from abusing the system so that they were disenfranchising. But it's not, it was never the idea. Never the idea to make it it was never the idea to make it about gerrymandering.
say they would have never passed Section 2 of the VRA.
No, it was the Dixiecrats, the Republicans, was actually the ones who passed the Bill of Rights voting. Yeah, it was. I remember that. I do know about that.
Had it been that blacks voted half Republican, half Democrat, that's just nonsensical. They would have still
Okay, wait.
posed
So
it
just
because
curious. Okay, I'm just curious then. If right now a state were to pass a law on like Trump's family biography or some shit that like 99% of white people could pass, but 1% of black people pass, would you guys both defend that as being an okay law?
No.
Why
Wait,
not?
wait,
If it's not? Wait. Why not? If it's explicitly, there's nothing racial about that test, no?
well,
It would be
the question is that
there would be something racial about that test because the breaker would be the symmetry breaker in that case specifically has to do with race. It's, and by the way, fuck all of these, okay? In my perfect society, voting will be less gay. In fact, it wouldn't be voting.
there's some sort of test like a literacy test or an educational
Sure,
test. is
make
what
it a
you're saying?
literacy test, yeah.
And 99%. Well, I'm against sort of those sorts of qualifications
That's
anyways
not what I'm
on
asking.
your right to
I'm
vote.
saying, as per our reading here now of the Voting Rights Act, right?
That would have
Because
nothing to do with it.
Because you would have, if let's say you had we can just use the examples from history. If you put in a literacy test that basically prevented black people from voting,
Sure.
then by the plain language of the VRA, black people now have less opportunity to vote
Wait,
than
but
white people.
what if the literacy test, there wasn't any racial thing about it? That was just the effect.
I am describing historic examples where there was not.
You can't rely on historic
sometimes they
examples because that's what Alito didn't want to rely on. I agree with what you're saying because what you're quoting now is the part that he got rid of, which was the totality of.
It's because of media optics. They're using them as emotional pawns. Yeah, Asian districts. Well, they should have. I think LA is gonna have one soon. Democrats wanted slaves to count in the census, the same as they want illegal aliens to count now, so slaveholders would get more representation and could hold on to, yeah. See, exactly.
circumstances. But I'm saying if there's no racial language, it's just a biography about Trump's family,
Yeah.
and it just so happens to disenfranchise 99% of black voters and 1% of white voters, like the new gerrymanders are now going to be allowed to do.
Yes.
Why would you be against the literacy poll test or whatever, but you'd be in favor of the racial
Because
gerrymanders?
in that case, black people would be given less opportunity to vote than white people.
Isn't that happening right now in the racial in the way that gerrymanders happening across
No,
other states?
it's not. They have the
Wait.
exact same opportunity to vote and have their vote counted.
But not if they don't. But that it wasn't about having their vote counted. It was about having members of their class of
Yes.
citizens being able to.
But the example you gave was a literacy test, which is about having your vote counted, which is
Yep.
why I was talking about having your vote counted and why that would be a problem under the VRA, because it wouldn't have anything to do with the gerrymandering jurisprudence.
Why is it that the totality of circumstances language was adopted from, I believe, from Bolden, and then added to?
Who's helping you now?
What?
I said,
What do you mean, who's helping
is that Kafka or Pisco?
I don't even know if either one of them are awake. I read the whole decision on stream.
Okay.
I'm guessing
So
you didn't.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Look at me right now. What are the changes that Alito suggested to the Gingles framework?
To the Gingles framework? I have not memorized them. I'm happy to we can read them
Then
together.
how
if
are you
you'd like
even
to.
answering the question of whether or not a Section 2 case could be?
I'm making fun of you,
don't even know
for
the case.
looking off screen and getting it from your chat. I'm making a joke, Destiny. Make your
This
point.
is one of the most cited cases in the decision. You have no idea because you haven't even read it.
Exactly. They're gonna ask questions for the fam. History rhymes. Well, we all know what they want. They want power, and they want to stay in power. They will use anything for it, because that's all they want.
I don't even know how you were answering my earlier questions if you didn't even know what any of this even was. How are you answering whether or not a Section 2 case could even be brought before if the whole point of Section 2 cases was they relied on the Gingles framework, and now that framework has been completely destroyed? Kagan says we should call it the Calais upturning or whatever instead of the new Gingles
the way
framework.
that because
You can't explain it. Why are you explaining to me now when you just said you don't even know
was
what the
how
framework is?
I don't even know what he said. It was just like spurging, the Spurgatron.
I didn't say that. That's the thing that you wanted to yell about because there he goes.
Look at that. Look at that. Farmer Cat was right. Rob Noor and Ryan were just too mean. Can we get some meanies in chat? Just get some meanies there. Spare quitting in 10. Jesus. It's like pure doms. I saw a couple of financial audits, by the way. I wish I could show you some of them because they are insane. They are insane. Let's see if this guy is online. He ain't online. Ain't got no answers, man. Ain't got no answers. See, tomorrow I think he has JP Uncut. Live. Yeah, we're gonna have an Andrew Wilson versus JP and Mahler. It's gonna be interesting, I think. It's gonna be cool. People are very mad at me, especially the Proto Bros. You must construct additional pylons. Okay. Now somebody sent me something. You guys want to listen to it? I can probably get it. Get it to play. So we're gonna listen to it. This is not my version. This is another version. But this is part of Proto Bros Records. Let's see what it says. How it goes.
Proto Bro Records presents collaboration with our savior, the Super Chats. You must construct additional pylons. Street lights flicker in the corner where the pins stay cold. Mama crying through the night when my papa curse. Every kid got a story, every block got ghosts, except for those that were thrown through a back door. 10 brothers lose faith over fast cash dreams, and mothers shed tears while they silently scream. Trying to walk righteous while temptation pull tight, living in the dark but still praying for a light. Satan lurks in the shadows, making your tongue slip, cussing like your father's making you weird. But be sure to be fair, as lyrics Sam would say, he would lessen the horror, he would call it a day. Yeah. No casino bosses, Holy Spirit saves your soul from ashes. No cussing will save your soul. Dead babies, that's bad, we know, but saying fuck is a big no-no. Babies go in the back door. Yeah. Babies go in the back door. Yeah. Yeah. Politicians talk loud, but the block stay broke. Every promise disappear like the last puff of smoke. Little homies on the curb trying to act grown fast. Learn pain before love, memories never pass. Grandma said, watch your tongue and protect your name. Buried in the city, make us all sound the same. I'm still searching for redemption in the world so numb, where the choir still sings and the drums still hum. Heaven hear the cries from the alleyways. Lost kids praying for some better days. Even when the system makes us fall, truth still shines brighter than the chains and gold. No casino bosses, Holy Spirit saves your soul from ashes. No cussing will save your soul. Dead babies, that's bad, we know, but saying fuck is a big no-no. Babies go in the back door. From the gutter to the heavens, let the message light. In every verse, only lyrics Sam gets mad.
Hey, it's a little too. It's a little too AI. It's a little AI. I like it though. I made my own. I made my own version. You wanna see my own version? Okay. Do you guys wanna see the version that is not AI? I'll probably upload both. I'm not saying my version is better than that, by the way. But it's funnier. I could say it's funnier. Even if a tiny bit funnier. Confusing. What does babies go in the back door mean? Oh, so you know, when you offer a baby to Moloch now, they don't necessarily do it in front of everybody. They just do it, and then the remains, they take them and they post it as if it was waste and take them out of the back door. So that's what it means. MC Emmet. We want the US to use our airbase in their country and using our troops as shields. Are you talking about the Blue Jays? The whole situation in the Middle East is absolutely fucked. We have Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE say they want political way out of Iran not getting a nuke, and Iran want the whole. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Just use your imagination, Abe. Sending Delta, get the dust, get out. Some are saying reason Trump wants is because they can see where it was mined. He wants to see if H man gave him uranium 1 reference. I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, I mean coming from nowhere. No, it's a small diss track. It's about him not wanting to debate that. How about that? Cash me outside. I thought it was funny though. Oh, Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Hillary Clinton did some fuckery over there. Okay, I'm gonna show my version. Again, it's not as good, but it's my version. My version. Okay?
Protobro Records presents, in collaboration with our Lord and Savior, the Super Chats.
You must construct additional pylons.
Straight lines flicker.
They didn't realize it sounded so loud, but it's pretty good. The Clintons did give Iran uranium, but they want the signature, don't they? I don't even know. That's a good
In the
one.
corner where the pins stay cold, mama crying through the night while my papa cuss. Every kid got a story, every block got ghosts, except for those that were thrown through a back door. Same brothers lose faith over fast cash dreams, and mothers shed tears while they silently scream, trying to walk righteous while temptation pulled tight, living in the dark but still praying for light. Satan lurks in the shadows, making your tongue slip, because sin like your father's making you whip. But be sure to be fair, as Rick Sam would say, he would lessen the horror, he would call it there. No casino vices, Holy Spirit saves your soul from ashes. No casino will save your soul, dead babies out by window, but saying fuck is that big, no. Babies go in the back door. Yeah. Babies go in the back door. Politicians.
I see you want to debate, but didn't get agreement, so had to criticize. Yeah. What is the problem with that? Serenading me will get you nowhere. Oh, I know. Dude. We're not gonna have the debate, okay? You think you're gonna have the balls to debate me? It's not gonna happen. This is just funny shit. I thought it was funny. People send me stuff. I decided to make it happen. That is cool. That's it. They said there was a problem. It seemed like you did. I see you wanted at the base, but didn't get an agreement, so had to criticize. Is it a critic? Like, yeah, the critic is, I think, is so much of a bitch to debate me. I don't even know if it's gonna happen, to be honest.
Talk loud.
Yeah, you can see the rest of these when it will be when it will be shown. Shit. Damn, did you get invited to the dance party? You get 2 versions later on, but good to see you, Leia. Welcome. Yeah. Serenading me. Oh. If I were to serenade somebody, It would be in Spanish. Let's see. We're gonna finish with nationalism. There was some people who paid a little bit for it. I think I had a couple things going on. Oh wait, there's. Oh yeah, I'll check that out. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see who's live, so I can send somebody over there. I'll be on later on tonight. We have Pound Town with Trench. Later on, it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm gonna go to bed for a little while, then come back, do that, have some other stuff to do. Yesterday we had yesterday we had the movie Twilight, and my god, fucking movie's horrible. I realized that they must have had a bet going from, like, the actors must have bet who is the guy who's gonna have the stupidest expressions. I think Edward won, but not by much, because Bella had the stupidest expressions too. They both were dumb as fuck. Yeah, let's listen to nationalism. This is gonna be the ending, and I'm just gonna go ahead and send everybody somewhere fun. Somewhere you can, you know, have a little bit of a ritual, a ritualistic.
Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word. Nationalism. Nationalism. Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word. Nationalism. Nationalism. Well, I'm ready. Cashed in my tokens, I'm ready. No longer broken, I'm ready. Thank God I'm found and I'm ready. Trapped through the ceiling, I'm ready. Gonna bare my soul and I'm ready. Go toe to toe and I'm ready. Like a midnight show and I'm ready. Burn down the building, I'm done placating to the wisdomless. I got a deep dark shadow when my fingers itch. I'm gonna save this country, gonna save these kids. I'm gonna show these niggas what the white man is. I'm gonna save this country from the lying Jew. Gonna deport these Muslims and I'm coming for you. We'll scrap the whole damn thing and we'll try it again. And this time you're not allowed in. Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word. Nationalism.
We're gonna change it for debate.
Nationalism. Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word.
Oh, debating. Debating. It's the Jews, the Tengu, the Tengu, the Tengu, the Tengu, the Tengu, the Tengu, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. It's the Jews.
Stop pole, left is getting way too cozy. These media moguls getting way too nosy. All I ever heard a black man say is you owe me. If it wasn't for us, you'd be a cannibal, homie. It's time we start getting the respect we deserve, instead of giving these people something they didn't earn. These immigrants showing out with a whole lot of nerve. If shit was back home, baby, they would have it heard. Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word. Nationalism. Nationalism. Baby, don't be absurd. Nationalism's not a bad word. Nationalism. Nationalism. Yeah, imagine being part of a debate space, you have a position, and you're too much of a bitch to defend it. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. I'm gonna go ahead, go to bed. I didn't see anybody live, so I will not be sending nobody anywhere. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have an extremely awesome day. Wait, there's a Ko-Fi. I need to go ahead and check what it says before I leave, otherwise I would be grifting. And that, I ain't want to grift. I want to provide what I can when it comes to all this. It's okay. It says nationalism's not a bad word. Thank you very much, Hollow Nate, for the support. You're a legend. Seems a bit much. Nationalism or debate? I don't know which one. But thank you very much for everybody who was here. Thank you for the support. I'm just gonna go to bed, take a little break. It took forever to process. We got nationalism, so it's fine. We did, boys. And in fact, nationalism is not a bad word. God bless to all of you. Hope you have an excellent day. Take care. Don't, you know, if you see a proto bro, don't engage the proto bros, man. So mean and evil. What's a proto bro? I don't know. People that are mean on the internet and want debate. Don't be a brookie. No, this whole thing, call another man bitch for no one to debate a subject seems very pretty passionate over. It's bitch, man. Like, it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, okay? But it was gonna be a good debate. He doesn't want to do it. There's nothing I cannot force him. What is that? It's a bit bitch made. Insane. I don't know about the song, not very good. It isn't good, but it's fun. The point of it is not for it to be good, it's to be fun. There's a better version. I will upload that version, the better one. Nationalism is amazing. That's a great song. God bless to all of you. Have a great rest of your day.